Thank you for joining in. I'm Siti Jain from the Communication Management batch of 2022, and I will be your host for this seminar. This week, we're sharing a conversation with the Chancellor's Gold Medal awardees, Ahmar Zaman and Rehmatullah Sheikh from the batch of 2013 and 2014, respectively. Emma is working as a marketing coordinator for the Indian region at Turner International. He's worked with leading consultant firms, including Deloitte, Briska Consulting, and IAMEI. He's the right guy to catch up on Marketing 101 and also get some tips on how to back the Chancellor's Gold Medal for the Best Outgoing Student in a UG program by Symbiosis International University. On the other hand, Remit works at Pacific Content, a Canadian podcasting company that makes original shows with brands. With education from SCMC and UBC School of Journalism, his tryst with story production, radio, and creative content channelizing are insightful and undeniably worth listening to for every young journalism and AV aspirant. Thank you so much, Ahmar and Rehmat, for joining in for this webinar.
Thank you so much for the very flattering introduction.
A very generous introduction, right?
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are all of you?
Doing pretty well on a Saturday evening. A quick note for the participants before we begin. Please note down your questions in the Q&A section below, and we will get back to them at the end of the session. So to start with a very simple but important question for the both of you, we would like to know, when did you decide to pursue a career in the media industry, and what was your experience in SCMC like? Rehmat, why don't you tell us about your story first?
So I would say the first time the time when I realized that I wanted to pursue journalism, I would say was like 10th grade, 11th grade, kind of like early high school. I knew I sort of wanted to be associated with the news and the media industry, and I was really bad at mathematics. So I kind of like added one on one together, and I thought the best way to deal with life is to do a media program. But yeah, that's pretty much when I realized that I wanted to do something in media. I also was interested in marketing, so that was again where I knew that I had to kind of place in the same ballpark. I know marketing and journalism are poles apart, but still. And yeah, my experience at SCMC has been amazing. I would say those 3 years were the most formative years in my life. And there are moments and there are lessons that I still draw upon from those 3 years, even to this day. And I know it feels like really long ago. I think it was like 7 years ago, or something. But I still have really fond memories, and those 3 years have shaped me in really good ways. Ahmar, what about you?
Yeah, so I think it's more than a decade now when I decided to go for the media industry. And back at that time, I don't think even Three Idiots was released. So unconventional careers were really not a thing. And like Rehmat, who was not that great at mathematics, I was pretty okay. And in academics overall, so me choosing media industry was really taken as a surprise by a lot of people, including my family and relatives. They were like, this guy is going to go crack JEE and all of those things. So, and again, like the knowledge and the exposure that this generation has about their career choices and those kind of things, it wasn't there that time. And anything unconventional was not really appreciated. But I was always clear that I have to, pursue something which has to do with communications and marketing. And although in people's mind, media related pretty much to journalism, including myself. But the kind of exposure that SCMC gave us in terms of not just generating interest in the different nuances and the different streams that media has to offer, even though social media wasn't a thing that time. but still, we still had a lot of bifurcations in those kind of things. So in terms of exposure, yes, I had basically joined only for journalism, but ended up with Marcom and PR and events. So yeah, a great journey and a great experience.
Okay, I didn't know, by the way, that Ahmar came in to do journalism, but he did PR. A lot of people gave me a lot of slack because I took that decision. And one of them is Sagar Dioskar, who I don't know if he's watching this, but if he's watching this, I hope you realize that there were more people than me who came for journalism but did PR, which sounds weird even as I say it, but it happens.
Okay, and you both have received the Chancellor's Gold medals. So, I mean, the straight up questions really would be, how did that feel? Ahmar, like, what did you feel while receiving it?
Okay, so to be very honest, I never knew about this concept that a Chancellor's Gold Medal exists and you have to like really, fight for it, and people are like going strong on academics and co-curricular activities or cultural events or anything like that. For me, it was just a unique experience that I got to, I got through the college. So it was more about being involved in everything that life has to offer rather than, winning any award or any medal. And things just kept falling in place. And yeah, destiny is what I would say. But yeah, the focus was really never on winning any uh, title or award. It just happened as a byproduct of everything that the college had to offer, and the things that we had to leverage on our own.
Yeah, similar to Ahmad, I actually did not know about the gold medal, I think, until after later on when you had to like apply for it towards the end. But for almost 3 years of the degree, I was unaware that there was anything called there was anything as a gold medal. I mean, I knew the concept of gold medal, but I didn't know it existed in our program. And just I think Emma put it in pretty good words. It was all about just participating in different things that life has to offer you, as you mentioned, Ahmad, and try to make the most of it. Try to keep yourself busy. Try to enjoy as much as you can. And although, like, I think was part of a question about how it made you feel, like how the medal made me feel. Ahmad, I would love to know from you as well. But for me personally, I think it was the highlight of my life, and I don't know what it says about me, whether it says that my achievement has peaked at that one award, but it was just amazing because I don't know how it was for you, Ahmad, but only the parents of the gold medalists were allowed to be at the graduation, and my parents having to come in from outside, like they had to fly in. So it was really cool, honestly, to be able to tell that my parents are here because I've won the gold medal. And I don't think anything so far has been able to top the feeling of receiving the letter in person, because you get a letter in person that you've been chosen. And I think I'm sure I've still kept it somewhere, but it was the best experience to be able to and Ahmad, I think you also must have got it from the president, like Pranab Mukherjee. In my year, Pranab Mukherjee was the guest, and there was Devendra Fadnavis and stuff, and other people with it. But it was just a surreal, amazing moment that hasn't been topped up yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Rehmat. And also because it was not limited to the institute itself, it was a university-wide recognition and representing SCMC or SIMC as it was called that time, on such a great platform where, like you said, only your parents are allowed to attend that event. And the fact that it was live streaming, so live streaming was a very rare thing that time, and back at home relatives were watching it live, so it was quite a surreal and special feeling getting recognized at that platform.
And I
Yeah,
mean,
like
who
imagine
doesn't?
imagine talking with a BBA student and asking them, so what were you doing for the last 3 years? And they'll say, oh, we were organizing this fest every year. And then they ask you what you were doing. It's like, oh, I was like chilling with the president. And, and then they'll ask you who the president of India is, because It's a BBA student. Sorry, I'm just throwing shade.
And I mean, there's nothing more important than having your loved ones feel proud of you, right? So,
Oh, absolutely. It's all about
Yeah.
going ahead from everything you felt, I want to know the exact procedure and the nomination criteria for this award. Like, how did you personally go about this? Rehmat, why don't you take the floor?
I don't. Well, I don't know what the exact procedure is. I think we get nominated by the director or whatever the group of faculty, and then if I again my memory is kind of hazy, but you have to sort of submit a few things. You have to kind of like talk about the projects that you've been part of, where you've interned, and your grades obviously play a big role as well. So it was all of that, and I think the fun part of this, or well, not the fun part, but a part of the whole gold chancellor's gold medal thing is that you're not really told in advance, or you're not really told that you have to basically be working really hard to get this, because I guess at some point then it becomes a little strange and unnecessarily competitive maybe. So that was one thing. It was never inside, and then it just like came up whenever it was time, which was great.
Yeah.
Ever any additions?
Yeah, in terms of procedure, I think I got a mail from the institute or the university informing me that I have been nominated for this award, and that I will have to submit a document with, I think, the grade sheets and the events and the sports activities. And it was a combination of all of these things coming together, and a document had to be shared with the institute. And quite honestly, I didn't think that that would suffice in terms of getting a university wide recognition. And yeah, I think that was it in terms of the procedure. And like Rahmat said, it wasn't informed to us in advance, so that it doesn't get unnecessarily competitive or that way. So I think it was pretty simple. It was just submission of a few certificates and documents, and then wait for the jury to decide.
So at the
Yeah, I
end, it's
think
about just doing your thing.
I kind of remember having the same feeling, because it's institute wide. You never think that you're standing a chance. And who's to say, maybe there were other people who were better than me that year, but I was just lucky.
And to recall, you both have had a chance to intern in so many different roles and organizations. So tell us something about that. And coming to the real world now, how much do you think the industry has changed or, evolved from the time your internships were held and till date, like my internships?
Ahmar, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll take it. So I think one of the major factors that has really disrupted the industry overall is the influx of digital in every aspect of life, right? Back when I started college, social media wasn't even called by that name. They just used to call it web surfing or online chatting or those kind of things, right? It became a form of media later in the years when nobody had the idea that this particular medium like this. We only had Facebook or Orkut to start off with, and it was just used to really catch up with friends or comment on people's pages and those kind of things. But the way things have evolved, the way digital media has evolved, taking major chunk of the marketing budgets across industries and sectors, right? So those are the things that you learn on the job, right? There the evolution is happening really fast, right? Things are changing with technology. So I think as a marketeer, it's really important to keep learning. And in terms of what has also changed is, people have become more accepting of change, right? Change management has become a big term in the industry today, which wasn't taken too seriously. It was more like a HR kind of a function that change management is being taken care of and all of those things. But it has become more real in today's times. things are evolving, and marketeers especially have to keep abreast with a lot of things, but technology, everything. If I were to say that, in the first year, because I'm clear that I only want to do AV or I only want to do events, that's why I don't need to learn about journalism or video editing or all of those things. That doesn't hold true anymore, because as a marketeer, there are times you wish that you knew how to edit a video or put it up on a blog or those kind of things, right? So there are no hard lines in the media industry today, and I think it's best for people to keep learning and unlearning at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with Ahmad. I think one of the things that's also changed or evolved is just the access to these people who are potential employers or people where you can work. When I was in my whatever in the 3 years there, we obviously had a dedicated internship cell which would work really hard. And then there was Twitter and there was a little bit of Facebook, but it was not socially acceptable, I would say, to maybe like reach out to someone directly on their Twitter page and ask them, hey, like, would you mind if you could tell me a little bit about your organization and can we intern there and stuff? And I think now it would be totally okay. Like, I guess now if I were to go back and like look for an internship, which I wouldn't, by the way, because I'm kind of tired of doing internships. If I were to look for an internship, I would, just be so open to going on Twitter, going on Facebook, or any of the many social media platforms that exist, and just be kind of like approach them directly. And now, because of social media, you just know so many more organizations, people who work at these organizations. So I guess the wall between you and a potential employer has just become so blurry, and it's like you can just find out more about them online by yourself. And in terms of working, I've had one journalism and one PR internship experience, and I'm honestly, to be very frank, the time that I spent at the internship was not that long that I could make direct comparisons. But I think Ahmar's covered that really well, especially for marketing and communication.
No, and like today's day and age, when we are looking for internships as of now, companies actually post on their Instagram as stories, that we have an intern opening, just send your email or reply to us via direct message. And it just works out quite easily than it did before. So, after internships and everything, what are the most valuable lessons that you learned on your job when you were entering the industry? Rehmat, how about you take this first?
Yeah. Is this for the job or for the internship part?
Your job, like the learnings you took
Okay.
forward in your job.
So my first full-time job was in a public relations company in the UAE, actually, in Dubai. And I guess something that Ahmar said stands out to me. It's about trying to be jack of all trades. It's well, that thing is glorified a bit, and I have my own reservations about how much can one really do in the media industry. But it really helps to be able to do many things and to have a good understanding of all verticals, right? So I was working at a public relations company that also handled social media for its clients, and because I was a frequent user of social media, it wasn't alien to me to sometimes like jump ship and help out the social media team. So I could go from writing press releases to writing social media copy fairly easily, just because I was sort of in that rhythm. So that was one of the bigger lessons, and that kind of makes you more valuable, right? Then when it comes to downsizing, which happens so often, you're most likely held on as a more important resource. So that's the one lesson that I think, to be able to have like genuine interest in a lot of things. And here's the thing: even if I wouldn't know how to do it, if I just had like genuine curiosity and a willingness to learn, people would be happy to teach it to me, and then I would have those skills eventually.
Emma, what about you?
Right. So Rehmat, you have very aptly put it across how, while we need to keep abreast with a lot of things that are going on around the industry, it's very important to find a niche, because that is what, will define you eventually. And it's really important in this fast moving industry to really learn fast and fail fast. So it's a concept, right? That if you want to try something, try it fast, fail fast at it, learn, and then move on. There's no point, staying around or sticking around one thing which is not working out. So fail fast is a really great concept to, have as a philosophy, and to really, grow in your career. Apart from that, in these times particularly, I would say youngsters get carried away by the startup culture a bit too early. So what I would suggest to them is, just hang around in the industry, learn from the experts, learn from the veterans, because ultimately God lies in the details, right? And the larger things which may probably be very attractive, or very appeasing to look at first, or get attracted to, but uh, the little nuances, the little details that you can work around, and those things only come with experience and working with great people and great leaders and great managers. So once you have learned enough and you feel that you can take on the industry, which can be very rough at times, it is only then best to take that jump. So my personal advice would be to not be so much fantasized by the startup culture, to find a good organization that aligns with your ambitions and your aspirations, learn the skills of the trade, and then probably once you've sort of, gotten the hang of things, then you can take that jump.
Yeah. And I mean, what you said, fail first, I think that's an amazing philosophy. It's two words, but it says a lot. So,
And also working with the right people. I think that's another important point that Ahmar has put up. We usually, like during our first jobs, or we are too eager to work, which is good, and we are too eager to please, which is kind of okay because we're at the start of our careers. But it's really important that you identify, apart from the skill part of it, what is it that you really value when it comes to working in teams, or working with people, working with good managers, because eventually that is what you will kind of make you wake up every morning and go to work, to be able to like feed off good
mm,
energy. And if you don't get that in the first job, that's okay, that's normal, but then at least like it's a good lesson to have
as
to
you,
carry
yeah.
on. Yeah,
And you said, you need to have the curiosity to learn, but as you said, it's very important to also have the right teacher
exactly.
to feed your curiosity. Now, moving the spotlight a little bit on Emma now, for our marketing 101 chat. Along with brand building and media communication, your forte lies in executing large scale conferences from end to end. So, what are some of your most memorable memories and challenges that you faced with these conferences, but pre pandemic, of course?
Okay, so if we talk about pre-pandemic times, the major challenges which still exist is there are a lot of parties involved in an event production, right? Unlike a reporter or an advertising copywriter or a graphic designer. These are, more you can operate on these functions in silos, but events is one area where you really have to depend on a lot of stakeholders, a lot of teams, and internal and external. So communication and coordination becomes really critical in events production. And if I particularly talk about the corporate events, which are like conferences and seminars and those kind of things, a lot is also dependent on the speakers or the guests who are coming in. One speaker backs out of the event at the last moment, and suddenly the entire agenda is all over the place, and you are trying to, get somebody to speak on the stage, somebody delegating at the event, try to, firefight, and it's a huge thing. Everything is happening live. There's no backup. So I think those kind of challenges were great when events were happening on ground. Right now, everything is virtual. So the challenges are different. But pre-pandemic, it was mostly the coordination, which, was really critical. And in terms of the experiences, I think doing an event wonderfully well or satisfying yourself with your performance at an event is the best thing, because it's like from conceptualization to actualization, you have been the person who have seen that journey. So to see that transformation from an idea to a reality is a great thing to witness. And to be able to do a commendable event is a great thing in itself. So while a lot of people do not see the flaws, because I honestly feel that there cannot be a flawless event. Every event will have its own glitches and have its own faults. It's just how well you can manage it at the front end, right? So you have been through all of these things as a event conceptualizer, and you see the journey, and once that event gets done, you really feel great about have taken that journey from conceptualization to actualization.
And you said how every event, has to go through glitches. How did you realign your efforts, during the pandemic? Like, how did the events go about it now?
So technology has its role to play here. A lot of technical glitches and speakers dropping out because of Wi-Fi connections and those kind of things. Also the engagement I feel is not that much in terms of virtual events. It's more like a personal portfolio building or just a make do kind of a thing. Although in today's demographic spectrum that we are operating in. It's a huge socioeconomic spectrum if you look at it from Indian ecosystem. So, for example, if I have to compare virtual events with on-ground events, it's like comparing television with an OTT. Right. So it's not like an on-ground event will stop happening or a virtual is the only thing to go ahead, because there's such a huge, gamut or a spectrum of demography in India. Everything will coexist, and all of these correlations will be complementary rather than conflicting. But glitches will be there will be loopholes, there will be challenges. It's just how we keep learning with experiences and handling them better in the next instance is what makes us better.
So I think I should be thanking the two of you and your Wi-Fi connections for this virtual event to take place. Moving to the next question, what is the corporate consensus like now? Like, do you think in-person events are going to hold the same significance in the new normal, or virtual conferences are the way forward now?
So events for us, since we have known and the way we have been taught pre-pandemic, was essentially people coming together and meeting. It was the concept itself was people coming together and meeting, and these webinars were not even called events, right? And there is a huge industry which is supporting the economy, whether it's hospitality or tourism or MICE events. All of these things are really struggling at this time. So there is no way that virtual is going to be the only thing. Like I said previously, we are operating at a huge spectrum of demographics and socioeconomic scale, right? So in that sense, all kind of classes will exist at all points in time. There will be advocates of online events. There will be people who would want to go on an on-ground event, because it is not just about knowledge, right? When you talk about an event, it's not only about gyan and the knowledge, because it's available everywhere these days, right? You go online, you search for something, you get all the information. And but it's more about networking, the soft skills that you learn from probably industry leaders that you look up to, uh, the way you talk, engage, and collaborate even for business purposes, right? So I think both virtual and on-ground events will continue to coexist. On-ground events are not going anywhere. we just have to pray that the COVID goes away.
Been praying for it for quite a while. I really need a college life back. And
Oh, that too, absolutely.
circling back to SCMC, you recently came in as a recruiter for Deloitte. So, how was your experience on being on the other side of the hiring process?
I think it was a really exciting opportunity because I was doing it for the first time and doing it for my college students, right? So it was really enriching and something I basically took care of the entire process end to end, right from shortlisting the CVs to interviewing them and finalizing the candidates. So I was really nostalgic also because I could, I always had this thing in mind that these are people from SCMC, but the knowledge that all of them, whether those that were selected or those that were not selected, it was more related to the requirement at that time, not because they were not great, but the knowledge that they brought with them was exceptional. And I was like, these people can replace me in my role today, right? There's nothing that makes them inferior to me in any way, not in terms of knowledge, not in terms of Instagram followers, or, you know, most of these people were influencers in their own ways. And I admit that it was an absolutely enriching and a very overwhelming experience for me to engage in that exercise.
And I mean, you've seen what they go through also being in their position at one point of time. So it's always a little
Right,
bit
right,
annoying.
right. I
Thank
mean, the
you.
kind of, sorry,
No,
yes,
no, no, go
the
ahead.
portfolios that they brought with them, they were so amazing. I was like, I wish at my point in time, I had known so much about the industry and was, focused so much on the details that uh, it was just great, I would say. Yeah.
What were you hiring for, Ahmar?
So, okay, I was planning on moving on from that organization to another organization, and the mandate was that, uh,
Oh, someone to replace you.
to replace you, but they said, you are leaving, but and we ask you to hire freshers, but we need 3 people as your replacement. So that bit was flattering, but the fact that said that we want people from your institute speaks a lot about the culture of professionalism that SCMC imbibes in all of us and prepares us for the industry, and it speaks in the industry itself. So that was a really great moment for me.
I hope you have it in your CV that, I was replaced by 3 people.
Three people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emma, for giving us all the insights about events and marketing. We'll be moving
Thanks,
the
Aditya.
conversation a little bit on Rehmat right now. And my first question to you would be as straight as how was your experience being an international student at SCMC?
It was great for me, not that good for my dad because he had to pay like 3 times the tuition fee or something. So I have to be very honest about it. That's just true.
That's still
But
the case.
yeah, and well, that's the case across the world, I guess. So it was great, and as an international student as well, um, I guess I had this extra layer where I had to be where I was way far away from home first of all, and apart from that, I was sort of more. I knew actively that I had to be a little more susceptible and a little bit more open to having more experiences because I was far away from home. And again, of course, I paid so much money for this, but at the same time, I obviously had to prove to myself and to my parents that this move was worth it, right? I had to justify it because even in my family, even sort of in my extended relatives, it was very rare for people to have moved on from the city where they are, and I kind of moved countries. So, but it was amazing because I am originally from India, but I hadn't spent so much time in India, and so those 3 years were especially important for my integration into the country as is, right. Of course, I bring in with my own layer of privilege, and I get to protect myself from things that most of the country doesn't get to protect itself from. But that said, I was still able to experience, I was able to experience not just the academic part of university, but all the social cultural sides that come from it. And one of the best things about SCMC is that it attracts students from all over India, all over the world, yes, but especially all over India. And it was just so amazing to like learn from them, to be able to become friends with them, to be able to visit some of them during internships or otherwise, and just to basically be able to learn from all their different perspectives and vantage points, and to kind of it was also like kind of entertaining to see how passionate they were for about their cities. Like people from Kolkata are just unabashedly really big fans of Kolkata, which I think is, which kind of gets a bit weird sometimes, but that's just how it is. So as an international student, I would say like it was not just an academic journey for me, but also an extremely important like coming of age feeling for me in those 3 years that I was able to spend time in India on my own. And when I look back, I never really got that opportunity again. I've never been able to spend that much time again in India. I was able to do it then, but like I have some really fond memories. And if I were to go back, each time I go back to India, it's not even because of my family or my relatives. It's because of the friends that I've made at Symbiosis and some of the professors at Symbi. So
No, I completely relate. I myself came from a very protected and sheltered life to India for my to pursue PR in SCMC. And it's been an experience. It's a learning every single day, pre-pandemic, of course. But yeah, now you made a switch from PR to journalism during your
hmm.
course. Can you share your journey and experience for making that shift? Like what made you
Hmm.
change your mind?
So this is kind of weird and complicated and kind of funny as well. I came into I came to Symbiosis to do journalism. And then I kind of realized that I wanted to do a master's program. I kind of figured this towards the end of it. And back home in the UAE, I knew that journalism doesn't really have a lot of prospects. And I was interested in public relations and communications too. So I made what some of my friends would call a hilarious and a very cowardly decision to switch from public relations, from journalism to public relations. And I pursued it. And I went back to the UAE and I started working and I started saving uh, by working in a public relations agency. Anyway, during that time, I realized that PR is not something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to, because essentially PR is like the middleman between the story and the storyteller. And I really just wanted to be the storyteller instead of like chasing journalists to get something covered. And I thought this was sort of the direction that I wanted to take. I wanted to get into and finally take the leap and try and do journalism. So that's where I then landed up in Canada, where I came for my master's in journalism, which I should say is still funny, because the place that I work at right now, it's not like a hardcore journalism thing that I do. It is storytelling, but it's like storytelling for other brands. So in a way, I'm kind of like back in communications. I don't know, man. That's just my life.
And you have a website of yours. So you've mentioned over there that your passion lies in international stories that resonate with diaspora communities in Vancouver and beyond. So, what are some of your favorite stories that you've covered so far?
Yeah. Well, thank you for going on my website. That reminds me, I have to like renew my whatever the thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
That's how Rehmat is increasing his website visitors.
Yeah, I drop it and go visit my website. Just joking. Don't do it. So one of the stories, yeah, this is what I like to do. I like to, because I've been able to spend time in different places, I like to look at international stories and what kind of effect they have on local communities. I guess one of my most memorable stories was I was working at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, which is Canada's Doordarshan, except it's much better. So there's there's a program, there's like a scholarship program actually called WUSC. And what WUSC does is they go to a lot of what we would call quote unquote developing countries, and many communities in Africa. And they give a lot of students the opportunity to come to Canada on a full scholarship. And some of the communities that they go to are extremely, like, these are poor communities. So in a way, the scholarship is like a lottery ticket. It's like your golden ticket out of your circumstances, and to come to Canada and improve your circumstances back home, so to say. So one of the memorable stories I did was, it was about this girl from Malawi in Africa, and it was about how she won this scholarship and came to Canada. But then the twist is that even though this was like a lottery ticket for her, it was a golden opportunity. There was this huge cultural shock that she had to go through that she was not used to. She was the first student in her family who went to university. She didn't know how Canadian society works, and there were so many cultural barriers that she had to overcome. Anyway, she's amazing. She eventually overcame those barriers, and has now become a mentor to other students who come on this scholarship from her hometown. And there's in fact this one girl that she was sort of mentoring and and keeping in touch with, and then went to the airport to welcome her. So we captured that scene of those friends meeting up at the Vancouver International Airport. So it was I think that's an example of the kind of stories that I want to continue doing generally. Like, it's an international story. It's an international scholarship, but it has some kind of residence in Vancouver.
No, that's a beautiful story, and that's on growth and adapting to change. You mentioned that now you're working in a podcasting company. Do you think the previous year has affected people's multimedia and specifically podcast consumption levels? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, this is a discussion actually the whole industry is having. This is something that everyone has been wondering, and especially our company, because podcast listening is linked to routine and linked to things that you do in the day, especially commuting. Commuting was a huge part of it. But surprisingly, also maybe not surprisingly, like, podcast consumption hasn't changed drastically, because people who don't commute may now listen to it during cooking because they've been like indoors more. People people now like to go on longer walks, and because that's one of the few times you can be outside. So people used that opportunity to listen to stories. So podcast consumption hasn't drastically been hit in any way, which is a good thing over the last year.
Okay, thank you so much, Rahmat, for all your insights and the
No
beautiful
problem.
story. Circling back to college days for the both of you, SCMC students, come from all over the world with diverse backgrounds, right? So, how did the cosmopolitan culture of the college and the city mold you as a person that you are today? Emma, you want to take the floor?
Right. So one aspect that Rehmat has already touched upon in this regard, with respect to the story that he told, was about the cultural shock that people sometimes get when they move to a new place. It was something similar for me as well, right? Coming from a tier 3 town to a tier 1 city where it's all cosmopolitan, and also a institute and a college that boasts of being such an international entity with participation and students from across the world bringing their own culture. So apart from certain things that were culturally shocking for me, mostly it was a lot of understanding in terms of the different cultures and those nuances, and it sort of broadens your outlook so much that whatever biases or prejudices you have, or the way media presents certain things to us versus how things are actually on ground, how people are, how they interact, how they communicate, how they deal with different situations, right? even in a fast moving city like Pune. And I happened to come to Bombay after Pune, so that transition has been there. So, but yeah, I mean, extremely enriching in terms of the way I got so much exposure in such little time. And there were a lot of these biases and parochial views, which I really got rid of by meeting those people, talking to people from different nations and their perspectives on politics, ethnicities, environmental change, a lot of things that really matter in the world today, apart from your careers, right? So I think it was also a humbling experience in terms of reminding me how little I know and how much there is outside the world to be explored and to know and understand and broaden your perspective about
Rehmat, what about you?
Yeah, same. Again, because I was coming in from like a sheltered, insulated environment to be able to just experience the country and to an extent the world through different perspectives was just amazing. Actually, I sometimes wish we had more international students, and I think, for instance, on SB Road, when you go to Faculty of Law and the other programs, they tend to have a more international network. And obviously things are different now because of everything being virtual. But I know for a fact that they have their own like cultural events that are students from Afghanistan and students from Africa who basically like have these events where they have a cultural event. So that's an example of the reach that you have and the interactions that you can possibly have by just being in one city. So yeah.
Yeah, and both of you being from the batch of 2013 and 2014, you were on campus at the same time. Do you remember interacting with each other at one point?
Ahmar was my neighbor at one point, right? Where you were living.
That's
Oh,
right. Ganga Nebula, right?
Ganga Nebula. Okay,
oh,
guys, if I have one suggestion for anyone, it's that just avoid Ganga Nebula if you can. Or maybe actually, you know what, Ganga Nebula has avoided you because I'm sure students are not allowed to stay there. Anyway, that's a different can of worms that I would be opening. But sorry, Amber, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt what you just said. Go ahead.
Okay, so I remember Rehmat from college, and he was an extremely talented guy. He is an extremely talented guy. At that time, I thought he was very competitive and somebody who wouldn't really shy away from, asking questions or getting to people to, get better at what he's doing. See, he was always in this quest for knowing more and getting to experience and information pehle se mujhe mil jaye kind of a thing, right? If I talk to the seniors and I'm more prepared than the rest of my batch. So he came across as very competitive, but at the same time, like I said, never shy to, try everything, and he would leave no stone unturned to ensure that he is the best in what he is doing. So that was the perception I had about him, and I really respected him for that. And we had a strange kind of a bond, not just because we were neighbors, but we would have these brief conversations in between, crossing each other. So, yeah, that was what I used to think about him.
Yeah, man, Amber, you said way more than what I paid you for. That's amazing.
That's
Thank you.
okay. I believe in repeat business.
No, thank you, man. That's so kind of you. That's so kind of you. And likewise, so for example, during events, like if you work with your seniors during these cultural fests and stuff, and people would say, "Oh, Ahmar se pooch le yaar. Ahmar is a really good guy. Ahmar is really good guy. Ahmar se pooch le." Because it's almost like if you know that if you go and approach someone, the other person has to give you a little background on how the person is going to respond. And Ahmar was always the really nice and kind guy. And I mean, which was pretty easy. You could see it in front of everyone. But he was also extremely talented and like extremely bright, and obviously no surprises that he got the Chancellor's gold medal. And I remember we used to have the attendance sheet, and I would always see Hammer like somewhere at the top in his attendance in the public relations class. So I knew this guy was not here. He was not messing around. He was here for business. And yeah, and I think outside of university, like there were times when we would meet in Ramadan and you would say, oh, like we should have iftar together, which never happened. But it was just nice to have Ahmar in your sphere of in your network.
Network.
Okay, just a reminder, Ahmed, I am still expecting my fee. Okay, it's not a barter.
Sure.
So,
Bitcoin. Do you take Bitcoins? You'll be happy
absolutely.
today.
I would
You'll
love
be
it.
happy today. Yeah, you'll be happy today, sad tomorrow, happy again, sad tomorrow. Then that's how it'll be.
and if there is one or maybe two, like a favorite memory or something that you instantly remember of each other from your college days, would you like throw some light on that? An instance that you remember,
Okay, so I
something
would
that
go
just sticks
first.
through.
Rehmat was usually a very, happy and smiling kind of a person around college. But there was this one time when I met him in the lift and he was really upset about something. And I'm like, something really bad must have happened to him. Why is he like in such a sulky mode? So I inquired, Rehmat, what happened? And then he goes like, Ahmar, I came second with 2 marks in a certain subject. And Aparajita Sharma has come first. Aparajita, who also, by the way, is a good friend. And he was like, Aparajita has come first. And I go like, and it wasn't even the final results or anything. It was just one paper or something. And he came second by 2 marks and he was so upset. That's how I realized that, okay, this guy is so competitive and he wants to come first all the time. But I could see a reflection of myself, my earlier self, before I actually came to college. I used to be like that. With every mark, I used to be very particular. So I actually saw a reflection of myself, and I was like, okay, there are more people like me, not just me.
Ahmar, by reminding me of it, you've made me sad again.
Oh God!
Just joking. I'm
It's
just
going
joking.
back on now.
I'm just joking, dude. I'm
He's
just
gonna
joking.
go look for his grade sheet now.
I actually don't remember this, but it doesn't sound unlike me. So yeah. But I wonder why I lost 2 marks. Um yeah, I don't know. My man, good memory, first of all. That's like sharp memory. I wouldn't expect myself to remember these things. Um I think like I don't really have one strong memory, but I just for some reason that thing of having iftar together was like I don't know why it stuck because I feel we were so close. We were so close to eating together and then it didn't happen. Uh, but anyway, so maybe next time we meet, we'll have iftar and we'll talk about why I lost
Yeah,
to
you can
Aparajita Sharma.
invite me
Where
to
you lost 2 marks.
you can invite me to your place in Vancouver. I would love to pay a visit.
This home is yours, bro. It's not even mine, but it will be yours as long as I'm renting it.
I hope your landlord is not, listening to this conversation.
I hope my landlord
You
is
have a
not from
mild
Ganga
heart attack.
Nebula. I hope my landlord is not from Ganga Nebula.
Now, um, if there's one piece of advice going a little bit on a philosophical way, you could give to your college self, your younger self, what would it be? What is one thing you would tell them?
So for me, I think it would be to really prioritize on a lot of things, because there was a point in time I was really struggling to do a lot of things at the same time and messing it all up. And also, what I realized later on in life is that college is one time where you can really set up a routine for yourself, right? In the rush for submitting assignments, or getting the best grades, or participating in everything possible, you sometimes tend to lose yourself or skip on the routine, or skip the gym classes or yoga classes or sports or other things. So I think for youngsters out there, like younger than me, not that I'm not a youngster, but people who are like really young in college and school, I think college is the best time where you can set up a routine that you can continue after you pass out of college and you get into the industry. And that way you are really able to manage time well while knowing that, this is my priority, fitness is one thing, arts is something else, apart from, working and other things that come and go with life. So I think if I go back to that time, I would really try hard to get a routine in place.
No, I
That's a
mean,
good
yeah.
point. Yeah.
And Rahmat, what about you? What would you pass on to your younger self?
Oh, I don't know actually. Well, I kind of shy away from answering this question just because like I don't want to remind myself that I'm getting old or I am old. But but I think I would definitely double down on what Ahmar said. Like to have to we sometimes see those 3 years at undergrad as like an experimental thing, even for our own bodies, even for our own routines. And we'll sleep odd hours and we wake up odd hours and we do weird stuff. But kind of like the expectations of and actually, well, this is where I segue away from what Ahmad said. I guess the expectations of employers now is to be able to like be a good team player. And I know this sounds super cliched, but that's just how it is. We studies and extracurricular activities is a huge part of university experience, but being a nice human is something that you should also that and it's a reminder to myself as well, is something that we should also constantly be investing in and constantly be like actively learning to be good, kind person. And even if it comes at the cost of some other things, you should just be able to prioritize your relationships with people first. And actually my boss who kind of hired me on for this work that I do now, she had come to our university at University of British Columbia as sort of like she was just talking about the industry, and she was one of the panelists, and something she said stuck to me. And she kind of used a swear word, but I won't tell you the whole swear word. She basically said that, and she was a CBC veteran. She was a veteran of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, so her standard is obviously very high. So she was basically saying that um, it would be very hard for me to fire an a-hole, because it's hard to fire people based on personalities. Like, how do you do that? But she did tell me that, but when I hire someone, I would try and make sure that I'm not hiring an a-hole. So, once you get into the industry, people will like suffer you. They won't respect you. They'll suffer you. Your coworkers will suffer you because you're there, but you won't really get the respect. So, but what's really valuable is how good and how kind and how nice you are to people. And that's especially true in this pandemic era when everything's happening over Zoom. People have a lot of stresses of their own, and you want to be someone who takes that stress away and not adds to it. Sorry, that's a very long-winded answer, but yeah.
No, but that's actually quite insightful advices that you're giving to your younger self. But all of us watching, including myself, can implement it for ourselves now. So, as we know, a lot of aspirants are watching us right now. What is the SET admission process, like? So, what advice would you share with the aspirants for preparing for it, acing for the personal interview, and all of that? Emma?
Okay, so in terms of preparation, I think it's really important to understand your strengths. And sometimes it can be deceptive as well, right? Because mm, you think that you are great in English and you really do not need to focus on that. And I'll probably focus on mathematics or general knowledge and those kind of things. But that doesn't really help, because sometimes it's very misleading because you do not know what kind of paper is going to be set, right? So I think it's really important to practice a lot in terms of cracking the paper, uh, in terms of time management as well, because a lot of things that may seem easy may take up a lot of time when you are actually attempting the paper. So that's from the written set point of view. But otherwise, I'll tell you my story. When the interview round was happening, that was my first exposure to the college campus and the students there. It was really intimidating. Okay, the environment, the students were so hi-fi, the language that they were using, the technical words that they were using in their conversations. I was completely oblivious of that. I came from a very small town and everything was so intimidating. And I was like, I am never going to get through. Even if I do end up getting through, I will suck at it. I'll be really bad. These people will like, just bulldoze over me any day because they know so much about the industry. For me, media was just journalism or being able to communicate or being able to write well. But the skills with which these people had come, like the nuances of photography and AV and public relations and advertising, copywriting, the difference between long copy, short format, all of those things. So these were things that were really overwhelming. But at the same time, I realized that it is very important to understand your strengths. And when you be there for the interviews, don't get intimidated. Don't get influenced into trying to become something else. Do not try to show off yourself as something else. Be original, be true to yourself. And that's how you'll be best able to represent yourself before the panel, right? Nobody is actually looking for perfection or how much you know. I think what panelists today are looking for is absolute honesty and sincerity, and how much do you believe in yourself. So when you are there for the interview rounds, just have that self-assurance and belief, and just focus on your strengths and talk about your strengths. That's all.
I wish I could top Ahmar's advice, but I didn't give the SAT exam. I didn't have to give the SAT exam, and I wish I did. I could, because then I wouldn't pay for international fees. But yeah, although I should mention, there are 3 friends of mine who I think were like some of the top scorers in SAT exams: Sagar Dioskar, Saroni Mehra, and Urvashi Athavle. And you should try and reach out to them for some advice and tips. Really, really good people as well.
Okay, and I'm sure aspirants will look them up on their Instagram. So, if you were to sum up the experience that SCMC has to offer, what would you tell our aspirants? Rehmat, you want to take the floor?
Sorry, could you repeat that question again? I couldn't hear it properly.
If there's, the kind of experience that SCMC offers, the kind of experience that aspirants should look forward to when applying to SCMC, what would you tell them?
I would say so actually, I'm glad you brought this up. One of the things that I really found useful in the 3 years were the liberal arts courses. So psychology, sociology, economics, those subjects were actually what kind of got me interested in the bunch of things that I got interested in up until this point. So I would say, and from where I did my high school, like the arts program was actually closed to boys. We're not even allowed to take up arts because it's a weird perception that only girls take arts kind of situation. So I would say, whatever background you bring from your high school, whether it's commerce, arts, or science, like be open to the experience of learning these different subjects of which belong to kind of the liberal arts faculty or discipline, because in the end, like, those are sort of the cornerstone of society. And I kind of give this example. We know that we have COVID vaccine, which is science, but one of the biggest challenges, especially in North America, is people's hesitancy towards taking these vaccines. And that's not a science problem. That's like a communications problem. That's a sociological problem. There are so many different elements within this public health sphere, and you won't understand, and you will not understand that if you're like fixated on just like the science part of it. So being open to liberal arts program would be my advice in terms of like looking forward to an experience.
What would you like to add, Emma?
Yeah, so I would speak more from a high level context where I was really impressed by the state of the art technology that was being used to impart education even at that time, right? Like presentations and projections. So these were things that were really novel to me at that time. And the entire experience was really enriching in a sense that it prepares you for the industry, right? Whether it's the competitiveness of the industry, the timelines on which you have to work, the pressure situations, the industry simulations that were happening, through mock setups and mock interviews or mock, assignments. So those kind of things are something that added so much value in terms of preparing you for the industry, giving you an insight and a preview of how the industry operates, how organizations work, how the entire setup is, what the structure is like, right? So at one point it may seem that you are a bit lost initially, right? Like I was when I, but the curriculum has been designed in such a way that it gradually takes you step by step to understand and empower you to take that decision over the course of 3 years. I joined for journalism, ended up with Marcom and marketing and PR and all of that. So that has to be attributed to the way the college curriculum was structured and the way communication used to happen within the system through emails and other things, and any assignment submitted after 12 midnight would automatically be rejected. And so I think all of those things really prepared us for the worst things that can happen in the industry, and mentally and in terms of behavior molded us to be the best even in the working sphere.
And can I quickly add something, if you don't mind, Siti?
Sure, sure.
And I don't know if I speak on Ahmar's behalf as well. I think like the one person who was extremely pivotal for this whole experience was Dr. Anupam Siddhartha, who was the director of our university at the time. And it was sort of his vision that really came through in the program. And his idea, he was a filmmaking, he taught filmmaking, but everything that he talked about and all the advice that he gave was sort of so all encompassing. And like I think one of the highlights, and it would be remiss if I didn't mention his role in my life, at least one of the highlights of those 3 years was just being able to have like FaceTime with him, and he's such a visionary guy, and he was deeply invested in our lives and in our careers. So I just wanted to give like a quick shout out to him and his role in making our journey, so much more meaningful.
I could not have agreed with Rahmat anymore. Right. Thanks for bringing out this point. In fact, the one decisive moment when I, actually prepared myself that, I have to join this institute was when during the interviews round, Anupam sir was addressing all the parents about what the industry is like and what the institute will be like. So his delivery and his presence, I was so sure that I'm going to join this institute and study under him. So he has had that influence on a lot of our lives. So we will always be indebted to him for that contribution.
I'm sure even listening to this and seeing you all at such great positions in life makes him very proud. Thank you, Emma and Rehmat, for this profound conversation. We really had a very interactive session, and most of the questions that we've gotten have been covered, and also because of the constraint in time, I'll just take a few of them from our attendees. There's a question for Emma. You mentioned that you never knew about the Chancellor's gold medal from the beginning. But now that we know, how can we prep for it from our first year itself?
I think preparation would largely entail how you perform in the academics and the assignments. That is one criterion I would say will always be there. And, it would be great if you can be in the good books of the director and the other teachers, because I think their consensus and their opinion is also considered when it comes to nominating the person. So apart from being great at academics and co-curricular activities, your behavior and modesty and those kind of things will always help.
Okay, I'm sure we've all taken note of that, and we'll be working on our assignments very diligently now. Rehmat, there's a very straightforward question for you. Is podcast here to stay?
Um, I would say yes, but then people would say I'm biased. But you know, like every platform, this area is also getting saturated. Spotify has got into this. They have bought out podcasting companies. Netflix had invested in it. I'm sure Amazon at some point will start investing in it. So it's here to stay for a while, until it gets saturated, and then it sort of has the same kind of trajectory as television does, because there's so much of it happening. But yeah, in short, if you want to get into a medium that's growing, podcasting is it.
Okay, and the next question is again to you, Emma. What specialization should I choose to get into events when in college?
Events. Yeah, then it's a straightforward one. If you want to go for the events, then choose Marcom in the second year and then events and PR in the third year. But more important than the specializations is how much of industry experience you can get through your internships in this time, right? Because events is one space where they'll always need people.
People.
Like an extra hand would always help. So it's not like any other industry where interns are just sitting and idling away their time in the offices, maybe taking Xeroxes of some documents or those things. It's not the same with the events industry. So if you really want hands-on experience, yes, choose the right specialization, but also do good internships.
If you want to attend events, join journalism.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
SCMC has both to offer. And to the both of you, how do we network well in college when in a virtual setup, knowing this is here to stay for a while?
That's a good
Okay,
question,
so that
actually,
is for Rehmat.
That's for the both of
for
you.
both of us.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
Yeah,
Rehmat has
that's a good
already
question.
thrown light on that aspect, how the wall between the employers and the aspirants has blurred and it's not there anymore. Thanks to forums like LinkedIn and others, a lot of them have come up where you can directly connect with the leadership, with the decision makers at every organization. And there are good chances that you get responses, unlike earlier times when you used to call the general landline number and request the receptionist to connect you to the right person and those kind of things. So digital has given that fillip, that advantage to people to directly do that research, find out the right companies for your career, get talking with people and tell them what you're looking for. And it's very transparent and very responsive medium, I would say. Rahmat, you would want to add anything to that?
No, I think, yeah, that's it. And also, like, don't be shy from requesting for a Zoom meeting or something, because now it's easy, right? And it's not awkward to ask for it. Whereas earlier you would have to. It's hard to get FaceTime with people in person, but it's easier with Zoom. So don't be shy to just meet them virtually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
LinkedIn
and
for
make a
sure.
compelling profile on LinkedIn so that whenever you send a request, you make sure that they don't reject you, right? Be presentable in a virtual setup.
Okay, Emma and Rema, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences with us. It definitely was an interesting session, and I'm sure it gave us all a good framework for making the most of our college years and beyond. I'd also want to take this opportunity to thank all the attendees for joining this session, and we look forward to providing you with many more informative seminars in the future. Till then, stay safe, stay home. Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank you so
lot,
much, guys.
Sri.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Rahmat.
Bye, Mar.
We'll catch up soon.
Yep. You have to. Oh, your Bitcoin is, by the way, you have
Yeah,
to
yeah, that's pending. Yeah.
have to arrange that.
All right. Bye. Good evening, people. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.